The United States imposes heavy tariffs on Chinese goods, expecting China to buckle under pressure. But instead of retreating, China strikes back, not impulsively, but with a calculated and precise counterattack. This is not just about trade. This is a battle for global economic supremacy. China has announced new tariffs on U.S. coal, crude oil, farm equipment, and cars, some as high as 15%. More importantly, it has begun restricting the export of critical minerals that the U.S. desperately needs. These are not random moves. They are part of a carefully designed strategy, one that could determine who controls the future of global trade. But is China simply warning Washington to back off? Or is this the beginning of something far more significant? Could these economic strategies cripple U.S. industries? Let's find out. Tariffs are more than just taxes. They are weapons in an economic war. China's new tariffs have been strategically designed to hit the U.S. economy in key areas. A 15% tariff on U.S. coal and liquefied natural gas sends a strong message, directly impacting America's energy sector. A 10% tariff on crude oil weakens U.S. energy dominance in the global market. Tariffs on farm equipment and cars specifically target industries that are crucial in politically sensitive states, the kind of places where economic distress can swing an election. At first glance, these tariffs may seem like a simple response to U.S. pressure, a move to match Washington's actions in a tit-for-tat fashion. But there's more to it than that. Over the past decade, China has been quietly working to reduce its dependence on American goods. It has strengthened its domestic agricultural production, expanded energy partnerships with Russia and the Middle East, and developed alternative supply chains. These tariffs are not just about immediate retaliation. They are a push toward long-term economic independence. If this were just a warning shot, it would mean China is testing Washington's resolve. But the reality is likely far more serious. If China is making moves to become even less reliant on the U.S., then this trade war is no longer just a series of policy disputes. It is a structural shift in global trade dynamics. Tariffs are only one part of this transformation. China's real power lies elsewhere, in something far more difficult for the U.S. to counter: its control over rare and critical minerals. Tariffs may cause temporary damage, but controlling the supply of essential materials changes the game entirely. China is the dominant force in the global supply of rare earth elements, materials that are indispensable for semiconductors, batteries, military weapons, and green energy technology. By tightening restrictions on tungsten, tellurium, ruthenium, and molybdenum, China is applying pressure on industries that the U.S. cannot afford to lose. Without these materials, American tech giants, military contractors, and electric vehicle manufacturers could find themselves scrambling for alternatives. The U.S. government understands the risk. That's why Washington has been aggressively pursuing new mining projects in countries like Australia and Canada. But this solution comes with a major problem. Building new supply chains for rare minerals takes years, if not decades. The United States does not have time on its side. This is not the first time China has used its control over minerals as leverage. In 2010, when it restricted rare earth exports to Japan, it sent shockwaves through the global tech industry. Japan had to restructure its supply chains to become less dependent on Chinese resources, a process that took years and billions of dollars. The U.S. is even more vulnerable than Japan. If China cuts off the supply of rare minerals, the consequences could be devastating. But Washington is unlikely to sit back and accept this reality. If China is using trade policy to assert control over global supply chains, the U.S. will respond by targeting China's most vulnerable sectors. And that means escalating the tech war, starting with an investigation into one of the world's most powerful technology companies, Google. For years, the U.S. has been targeting Chinese technology companies, banning Huawei from its markets and restricting TikTok's operations. Now China is retaliating with an antitrust investigation into Google. This investigation is about more than just competition policy. It is a signal that China is willing to challenge America's tech dominance, using the same regulatory weapons that Washington has wielded against Chinese firms. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Africa's geopolitics, economy, and changing landscape. Let's continue now. Google officially left China in 2010, citing censorship issues. However, the company still has a major presence in the Chinese advertising market, generating billions in revenue. If Beijing escalates its scrutiny, Google's operations in China could become untenable, forcing the company to pull out entirely. More importantly, this move sets a precedent. If China is willing to target Google, it could soon go after Apple, Microsoft, and Intel, all of which rely on Chinese manufacturing and consumers. Apple, in particular, is at risk. Nearly all iPhones are assembled in China. If Beijing imposes restrictions on Apple's operations, it could disrupt the company's global supply chain overnight. The consequences for the US tech industry would be severe. But we have all known China for not imposing tariffs on the US. What has changed now? China's decision to impose tariffs is not just a reaction, it's a message. Beijing is making it clear that it will not sit back and absorb economic attacks from Washington without responding. The question now is, how far will China go? If the US continues imposing tariffs, will China keep escalating, or does it have a limit? Looking at history, China has always preferred measured, strategic responses over reckless escalation. Unlike the US, which often makes sudden, aggressive moves, China tends to play the long game. It does not retaliate in a way that harms itself in the process. That being said, if the US continues its economic aggression, China will almost certainly keep retaliating, but in ways that maximize its leverage while minimizing its own risk. Tariffs are just one tool in China's arsenal. Beijing has already demonstrated that it can hit the US where it hurts most, in sectors like energy, agriculture, and technology. But if Washington refuses to back down, China may escalate its approach beyond just tariffs. It could further restrict exports of rare earth minerals, cut down investments in US businesses, or tighten regulations on American companies operating in China. What makes China's position stronger is that it does not depend on the US as much as it once did. The more Washington tries to squeeze China, the more Beijing accelerates its plans for economic self-sufficiency. This means that future US sanctions or tariffs may become less effective, while China's countermeasures could become even more damaging to the US economy. If the US doesn't stop, China will not only keep retaliating, it will likely start shaping the global trade system in a way that permanently reduces American influence. In other words, if Washington continues down this path, it may not just lose the trade war, it may end up losing its grip on the global economy altogether. Many experts believe that the Cold War has already begun. The United States is not just imposing tariffs, it is cutting China off from Western financial systems, restricting access to advanced technology, and increasing military pressure in the Asia-Pacific. China, in response, is forging new alliances, expanding BRICS, and leading an economic order that reduces dependence on the West. The world is splitting into two economic camps. On one side, the United States and its Western allies. On the other, China, Russia, and a rising coalition of nations looking to challenge US dominance. The question is no longer whether the trade war will continue. It is whether the global economy is entering a permanent state of division. And if you are still thinking China won't go too far to impose tariffs, then you need to hear this. According to Louise Liu, China's lead economist at Oxford Economics, the latest round of tariffs imposed by Beijing could raise the effective tariff rate on US imports into China by nearly 2 percentage points. This may seem like a minor adjustment on paper, but in reality, it signals a clear escalation in economic tensions between the two superpowers. Liu's assessment doesn't stop there. She warns that this trade conflict is still in its early stages and that we are likely witnessing just the beginning of a prolonged economic battle. In other words, this isn't a one-time retaliation. It's the opening move in what could become a sustained tariff war. If Liu's prediction holds, the consequences could be far more serious than the first trade war under the Trump administration. The very high likelihood of further rounds of tariffs means that both China and the US may soon find themselves in a cycle of escalation, where every move by one country is met with an even stronger countermeasure by the other. If this continues, it won't just affect bilateral trade. It could reshape global supply chains, weaken multinational corporations, and force businesses to rethink their entire trade strategies. The key question now is not whether more tariffs will come. They almost certainly will. But how aggressive each side will become. If both Beijing and Washington keep raising the stakes, this could spiral into a new Cold War, one fought not with weapons, but with economic warfare on an unprecedented scale. Do you think the US must stop for its own betterment? Who will struggle more because of the tariffs? Let us know in the comments section. Is the US even prepared to face China's reaction? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: African politics, economy, and increasing power. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.
Tell us what you think in the comment section. Like and share the video, and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our African videos. It's the best way to support us.